So, welcome, Carl Contino, to Ordinary Visionaries. So glad to be talking to you again.
Glad to be here. I'm ready to have some fun.
So, you and I have a long relationship. Um, you you helped me with my club website. How many years ago? Like 20 years ago. Was it 20 years ago?
That's not even possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
Wow.
And he's helped me with other things, and I've supported him in his business and the things he's done. And Carl is one of the most creative um, people I've known. He turned me on to veganism. Although I haven't stuck perfectly, I'm still pretty much a vegetarian.
Good, because there's no rules and it's all just one big fun journey as far as I'm concerned.
Right. So, Carl, to pin you down to what you do might be hard because you've done a lot of things, but in the simplest way possible, how are you an ordinary visionary?
Yeah, that's an interesting term. And I don't know how ordinary I actually am, but I have been working with folks for, gosh, close to 30 years now, acting as a catalyst to help clear the way so that people can tap into their higher abilities, if you will. My company's called Untapped Genius, and it's all about accessing the built-in abilities that we all have. And that's the fun for me to see people shine their light, do their thing to the fullest.
So, tell me a little bit about your work. You can really start anywhere with anything, but you know, you
Yeah,
might want to start with your story
sure.
and you've gone through some pretty hard things. You've gone through some really really extreme physical and medical things. You've come out the other end. Uh, when I talked to you a few months ago, you were on a 60-year juice fast.
60 years, 70 days. Yes, I was doing nothing but juice. That was amazing.
I mean, you
Yeah.
really you've gone to extremes in a lot of things. You got into sailboarding and then really hurt yourself doing that, and you've done some interesting things.
I've definitely had some
And
fun along the
plus, you
way.
have some amazing technical abilities. You've been able to help me with stuff on my website that I couldn't fix any other way. It's like you're really good at delving into things and figuring things out. So I don't know where you want to start, but
Yeah.
but uh,
Well, I'll start with how I came into this world was anything but what I would consider to be a genius, if you will, right? Even though I just said a moment ago that it's all built in who we are. I was born premature, actually, with is it called epoxy, where you have lack of oxygen? And that set up an interesting journey for me because I didn't learn how to talk until I was about 3 years old. And then
wow.
when I was talking, I would stammer. I always had a loss of words, my head full of fuzz and static, brain fog. And about maybe 10, 11 years old, I really noticed that I was having problems compared to my friends and whatnot. So, I talked to my dad, the doctor, and say, hey, I can't think straight. Something's not right. And so he'd have me see people, and really they didn't find anything. I took brain supplements called nootropics to try and amplify my brain's functioning, and no, nothing. I ended up reading over 300 books on the brain, the mind, spirituality, you name it. I read it, and nothing worked. And I have to be quite honest, my cognitive glitches have included not only speech issues, but dyslexia, ADD. But the most perplexing and frustrating of all is what I call a flow glitch. So music was my number one passion for many years. I pursued jazz guitar. I ended up going to a few different music schools, and I gave it my everything. I would practice 10 to 12 hours every single day. I had the most amazing teachers throughout the world, right? The strange thing is that a stutter showed up in my music. And the simpler the song, even just a simple, blues chord progression, there's a part of my mind I now call the controller that try to compensate for things, and it would step in and it would try to do the music. And in the end, I would end up doing like 100 little hiccups and glitches and errors in just one song. I mean, to say that I was bad is it? I mean, I was horrifically bad at music because of this. And the few
So
times
you
that
had all that training.
yeah,
You say you've got kind of a mind glitch that interrupts things.
yes, and it's very rare. I've never met another musician who's had this. Typically, if you're performing music and you're a stutterer, you don't stutter when you're performing music. But in my case, it's the exact
Right.
opposite. So, as I mentioned, I tried everything to fix my brain, and I couldn't. And to say it was painful. I mean, to have to perform in front of an audience, and you want that love, you want that energy. I mean, that's part of the fun, right? For me, it was absolutely painful and embarrassing because everybody felt awkward for me because I just couldn't find the flow.
Yeah.
However, so now, and to be quite honest, I do like being transparent about my journey. So I've also had a journey involving addictions. And at my very, very lowest, I ended up in my van smoking crack cocaine.
Wow.
And at one point, trying to end my life a couple of times. That's how low it took me.
Wow.
However, this is the fun part. So one day, I wiped the slate clean of everything I'd been taught, everything I tried, everything I'd learned. I started from scratch and I pretended I was on planet Earth for the first time. And I'm looking around and I don't know anything, right? And I asked myself a fundamental question. What does life want? Life itself, what does it want? And the answer I came up with is really, really simple, but it became the foundation for this approach that I call life as a wave. So the answer I came up with is, well, life wants one thing. More life. It wants to move, grow, expand, and express itself, right?
Yeah.
And it's looking for conduits or channels or vessels, bodies, hearts, minds, souls to express itself through. All right.
Yep.
And so I do believe that, the core desire for human beings is to do themselves to the fullest, so to speak, to fully express themselves. All right.
Yeah.
So here's the interesting little twist here. So what I ended up doing was I took some principles from music. If you think about timing, rhythm, tempo, getting in sync, being in flow.
Yeah.
Then I combined it with what I learned as an electrical and computer engineering student, where when I learned the physics of how a radio tunes into a station, the physics is identical for the mind. Because if you think about the mind, it's a transceiver. It sends and receives and interprets waves, right?
Mhm.
Just like your brain's doing right now, listening to my voice. So I made the game, and yes, I underscore the word game, to entice and invite the mind to change the channel. Because on this channel are my cognitive issues. But on this channel, what I call the high definition channel, if you think about TVs when high definition came in, all the details, right?
Right.
Up here, no cognitive issues. And instead, built-in genius that we all have. So today,
So how did you tap into that other channel?
I have come up with, close to 36 different, what I call wave tools. Again, it's called Life as a Wave. If you think about the signal, the wave, and it's about enticing because you can't force the mind. There's a paradox. The more you try and push and shove and manipulate and manage the mind, the more it'll tend to kick back. So we want to find effortless, fun ways to entice the mind to change the channel. Now, I could, as you know, I could talk forever about these things. So I'm just going to keep it really simple. That when we do change the channel, you know it because if you know what to look for, the feedback is always letting us know what we're tuned into. Are we tuned into the fear channel? Are we tuned into our conditioned mind where the past is constantly being projected into the now? One of the slipperier, sneaky things that the mind does, right? And it keeps us bound to the known, into our past. So when you tune into a high definition channel, just like the high definition TV, you pick up on subtleties and nuances and details and energy. Your energy goes up too, by the way, right? So it's giving you feedback moment to moment. What am I tuned into right now? All right. So that's the simple way of looking at it. And again, my joy is, we all have stuff getting in the way, right? Doubts, fears, distractions. And so my fun is looking to those things, helping the person clear the way so that they more naturally tune to their higher version of themselves and of life itself. And when you see people light up, what fun it all is.
So, of course, we're all curious to know how that affected your music ability.
Well, I still have the flow glitch.
Yeah, and?
However, I have a dozen different feedback loops that I'm constantly feeling into, how my body feels, so that when I am being run by the controller part of my mind who's trying to do the doing,
Yeah.
I feel it as what I call edges. There's like interruptions in flow. There's hard transitions, kind of like if you were to take a breath in and then exhale abruptly like that, you feel the edges.
Yeah.
Here, what I call a flow cushion, when you breathe in, I'm going to slow it down so you can see it, and you'll see it with my hand. So the transitions are now soft. Okay?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That one thing, physical sensation, lets me know if I'm in the flow, using the flow part of my mind or the controller. And this is one of the tangible things that it did for me. So in music school, I had this, in ear training, I had this one teacher who didn't like me very much because I couldn't sing the notes. And he'd say, Mr. Contino, what's wrong with you? Why can't you sing this note? And he would bang on the piano, boom, boom, boom. And I was horrifically embarrassed. I mean, I was already shy, sensitive, and super self-conscious about my glitches, right?
Yeah.
So I'm there, I go, right? And I couldn't get the note. Now watch this, because this one flow cushion thing, softness, instead of bum, 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 it's more like wom, wom, wom. Here's what I did. I put a headset on so I couldn't hear my voice, so the controller wasn't analyzing. It got out of the way. And then I would use the flow. So I couldn't hear myself sing, but I could feel it. And so when I was singing, I could feel if I was in tune or not. So now today, I can sing on key. I can harmonize. I can improvise. And here's the craziest part. I can even for moments sing along with a song I've never heard before in my life. Now, how is that possible? That's not. How do you do that? Well, it's the difference between you doing the music and the music doing you. If you think about the radio, is it doing the music? No, it's a vessel or a conduit for the music to go through. So when you apply those same principles to you and expressing yourself in all forms, and this applies to every form of expression, as well as sports and athletics, okay? Yeah, that's the type of insights and experiences I'm able to have now and help others to be the conduit to fully express themselves too. Big time fun. I have no words, or I do have a few.
I know you are big on drumming. You play drums. You play. Do you have them right in front of you there?
Yes, I always do.
So, yeah. So, despite
I was going to show you one.
despite the fact that you've had a lot of difficulty with music, you know what stands out for you is your amazing persistence and long work. Like, I understand what it means to work long and hard on something for hours and hours and hours until you get it. And you really are kind of a master at that, continuing until you have a breakthrough.
Yeah, I don't know how to give up for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. So how do this whole life is a wave thing, which you kind of developed while I was, I've known you for many years. We've talked many times. You've told me about it. You've shown me some visual things. And how is that a practical thing for the average human? Why would that be useful? How is it applied? What is it?
As I was mentioning, when we know what to look for, the feedback will let you know what state of mind you're in. And we want to be in a higher, clearer state. We all want to think more clearly, more creatively, be more effective, and take in the beauty that life has to offer. But all of these things, when you view them as particular channels, it changes the game. And when you know what to look for, like again, if you just look outside and you notice the details are stored on that high vibrational channel, high definition, right? And so when you can notice the details, you're enticing the mind to tune to that higher channel, and you're taking in a fuller, richer experience of life. And at the same time, our ability to perform changes second by second by second. Most people don't necessarily realize that. And our intelligence, our ability to think clearly and creatively changes moment to moment to moment. For example, if we have some kind of fear triggered as we're talking, let's say, it renders us into what I call the duh state. It lowers our channel, and we're not able to think, express ourselves as clearly as a moment before. So this is a real-time, moment-to-moment, second-by-second kind of game at play. And when you are in the groove and in the flow and tuned into that high-definition channel, you're at your best, period.
So I get it, but I'm not sure how to do it. So, I know this is not simple. Everything takes a long time to understand and explore, et cetera. But give us an example of a person who is out of flow.
Got it.
Say what's an example?
Perfect example is dancing.
Okay.
Some people who think, oh, I can't dance. And I used to be one of them. Yeah. Right? So you're there, the music, and maybe you're at a wedding or something. Maybe you're with a partner, and you're self-conscious, and you're like, I don't want to look like a fool. And you're just trying to calculate and controlling the movement so that you don't look like a fool. That was me.
And the more you're trying not to look like a fool, the more you look like a fool.
You got it, baby. That's it.
Yeah.
It's what I call the controller. It takes over when there's a perceived threat. And in mine, it was trigger happy. So now, in contrast, one of my favorite phenomena and forces of nature is called, ready? Entrainment. So think of the word train and put the letters EN in front of it. To entrain is to have one rhythm or pattern sync with another. It depends, life depends on this completely. Synchrony. Think about a conductor in sync with all the musicians in the orchestra. If they're out of sync, you've got a cacophony of noise. But when in sync, you've got the sweetness of music. Right? So here's the cool thing about entrainment. It's built in, it's baked into every one of us. And it is the key to finding flow. And flow is the key to performing well and enjoying yourself and being at your best.
Well, how does one get entrained into something, such as back to the dancing example?
So back to the dancing.
So I'm on the floor struggling to dance, trying to look good, looking like an idiot, whatever. How do I tune into that higher, more channel where I'm entrained with the music, so I'm just having fun?
Simple. Actually, believe it or not, it is so simple.
Okay.
Remember I mentioned the flow cushion? Remember those edges and the lack of?
Yeah.
So if you feel into, and if you're out of flow, you're going to feel the edges. You're going to feel the abrupt transition of one movement to the next. Then, without trying, just imagine feeling just a little softer in the movements. That enables entrainment to take over because it's ready to take over in any moment, at any time. You just have to get out of the way. So with just a little bit of play with this flow cushion, just feel into the soft transitions of your body. And that'll get you into flow.
Okay. Very interesting. So where do you see with people that you've worked with that get stuck in life, get stuck in you have a particular neurological thing that you were born with or whatever, given your history. So not all people have that kind of thing, but a lot of what I've noticed for people, I've worked with a lot of people over the years, people second guess themselves. They hold themselves back. They're afraid to take action. They're always, you know, so, I don't want to get into the necessarily specific things, but we want to connect with people on a level where we really feel we're communicating. But we're afraid to communicate. We're afraid to sell, for instance. Uh, anyway, so that kind of stuff. Have you worked with people that have, overcome or gone beyond that using these flow techniques?
Yeah. So this brings up the fundamental game at play for all human beings, what I consider to be the singular universal cause of all unnecessary suffering and all unnecessary interruptions to the flow, to us just being who we are to the fullest, as I like to say.
Yeah.
And that is distortions of perception. Now think about this for a second. As we're looking out at reality with the capital R, what objective reality, what actually is, okay? As we're looking out, imagine an invisible telescope. You're looking through, and there's hundreds, literally hundreds of these invisible lenses that are distorting reality. For example, quick start with this is illusions. Think about the visual and other illusions that the mind has to create in order to understand reality. Like look off into the distance, things look smaller, right? The illusion of perspective. It's not smaller, right? So there are many, many illusions happening. Then there's the conditioned mind, part of that being what we were taught and how to interpret reality. This is good and that's bad and this is that, right? From our teachers, our institutions, our friends, our family. Yeah. Then we've got these, I don't know how they count and figure this stuff out, but supposedly there's more than 98 cognitive biases. There are also these invisible lenses distorting things like confirmation bias. We love hearing things that we already hold to be true, and we don't like so much to hear things that are in contradiction to that, right?
Right.
That's just one of them. Plus, then there's
These
my
are
past.
like filters of perception, right?
And that is what makes life so challenging, because many times we don't know that this is going on. And even if we do know, can we see it in the moment? Yeah. Especially what I mentioned earlier, projecting what the mind thinks to be true onto people, places, myself, and what's possible in my life. So those doubts and fears will always, always, always come up as real. Yes. Just like watching a movie. When you're watching the movie, it's real until you change the channel. Or when you're dreaming at night, it's real until you change the channel. Well, the creations of the mind are identical. When it's activated and running through, it's going to be 100% real, and we forget what we know. Wisdom, awareness, all the time that we've put into developing ourselves goes right out the window because we're tuned to a different channel at that time. We're tuned into the creations of the mind channel. So that's a universal challenge that we all have.
Buddhists call it Maya. The illusions of life.
There's many of them.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, just not being in the now, just being in the flow of life. We're anyway. So given all of that, sounds hopeless. So how do we have all our past conditioning, and given certain stimulus, we will respond in a certain way. And sometimes that's not a big deal in certain things. It's a shortcut to getting things done. We do things automatically, whatever. We learn a routine. But we want to be, you're saying we want to be in the moment, not caught in all of these things. So how do we get back to center? How do we get back to, here I am, glitch free, my real self?
Yes. And that's why I call it a game, because no matter how much I know about this stuff, I've dedicated my life to these types of distinctions, right?
Yeah.
Part of the game is that I am going to be fooled every single time initially. because the illusions of and distortions of perception exist even before I'm cognitively aware of it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to set myself up for failure thinking that I can control all this, because I can't.
Yeah.
What I can do is know that this is going on, and then get pretty good at seeing it sooner than later, right? And, some of these perceptions and whatnot are going to be real in the sense that we have real challenges. Not everything's an illusion. I don't want to make it sound like that, okay? Our challenges are real. Like, remember, I got into the ski accident. What was it, 2014? I went down a run at the end of the day, 40 miles per hour. I hit the ski jump the wrong way. Instead of going 3 feet up, I went 25 feet in the air. I fell backwards onto a sheet of ice and I broke 8 ribs. I broke my hip in 9 places, punctured a lung, and I was in a wheelchair for 6 months. Now, so that's real life stuff happening. So what do we do with this? Well, Coach Carl, I've got these, reframe questions that I like to ask myself. So while I'm waiting for the helicopter to pick me up, I'm asking myself 3 questions. Oh, what can I do with this? What's the opportunity here? And remember, I turn everything into a game. What do I actually like about this? So I'm asking myself these 3 questions while I can't breathe and my one leg it's dislocated too, and it's up by my face. And I'm like asking these questions. And I'm like, what are you, crazy? Nothing came up until I heard the sound of the helicopter coming. And I had my first, what I call yes thought, where you work with that piece of crap situation you find yourself in instead of fighting it. That's part of the game. It's finding a way to get into rhythm and flow with it, work with these things, right? So my first yes thought was, well, I've always wanted to go on a helicopter ride. True. But that set the stage. So then when I'm in the helicopter and the paramedics were taking care of me, I thought, wow, thank God there are people trained like this to take care of people like me in this situation. When I got to the hospital, it was the same thing with the doctors and nurses. So by the time I left that hospital, I had a list, I think, of like 33 different reframes. And I was also known as the most positive patient in the hospital, probably the most delusional too. But I'll tell you what.
Probably most delusional as well.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. That's a requirement in playing the game, right? Intentionally delusional.
Right.
So then I got out. I was ready to go kiteboarding and skiing all over again. I was so excited, happy to be alive. My doctor told me every day, people who fall from 25 feet are either dead or paralyzed, right? So I was very grateful. However, the physical therapist said, dude, I'm sorry to say, but your hip's not doing well. Long story short, I've got a torn labrum. I didn't want to do the surgery after a lot of research. And then I started feeling sorry for myself. I started feeling like a victim to my situation, right? So easy to do. And then I remembered, it took me a little while, and I said, oh, that's right. What can I do with this? What's the opportunity here? So I decided to play a game. Ready? I said, okay. For 3 days, I'm going to move for 30 minutes. And if all I can do is move my thumbs, I'm going to move my thumbs for 30 minutes. All right? That was the game of play. So I did that for 3 days. And at the end, I was like, all right, not too bad. Let's do 10 days. So I did 10 days. And then what I started to do was, instead of using discipline and everything to go exercise at the club Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, be strict and disciplined, right? No. I put on the music. And as I'm lifting these little 5-pound weights, I'm doing this with the music.
Right.
Right. And then I got a hula hoop.
A hula hoop.
A hula hoop. It was good for my hips to try and get some movement, right? And so I kept going. I went from 10 days to 30 to 90 to, I just kept going and going. And I think it was 2,138 days in a row without exception. Even if I was sick, even when my dog died, I found a way, and it was effortless, to do what I call my decom, my daily celebration of movement. So that's how we can use principles of nature, actually, where we transform the grit into a pearl, for example. So if nature does it, we can do it. And that's part of working with the very real challenges that we have in our lives.
You may be the most persistent person I know. I mean, and also someone who has faced these incredible challenges like this accident. Also, when you were into sailboarding, which I think happened before your ski accident, didn't you hurt yourself sailboarding as well?
Yeah. I have about 40 floaters, those little thingies in your eye,
Yeah.
because when I was setting up the kite, it's a huge, huge kite that has the power to catapult you, 20, 30 feet into the air. I did a jump and the kite hit the water first. Then I landed in the soup. And long story short, got tangled around me, around my neck, which I was able to get rid of just in time for this thing to power back up. And it was pulling me by my leg and my chest. And the bar, as I'm trying to get control, snapped in my eye and gave me instant damage. So that was one of 3 times that I got into serious trouble with the kiteboarding. I don't do that anymore, but I windsurfed for the first time in 40 years this past summer. After the latest health challenge that I've had. So I feel like victorious, like no matter what, where there's a will, there's always a way, as my grandma used to tell me.
Carl, I have a policy, which is obviously not your policy. And my policy, don't do anything that's likely to kill me. But I don't want to hear about your obituary someday. Carl decided to ski off Mount Everest, trying to make the world record ski jump. Don't do that, okay?
No, I'm not about that. I'm actually not a thrill seeker, believe it or not. For me, nature's my church, basically. And when I'm out there kiteboarding or skiing, that's what it's about for me, actually. Yeah. So, yeah, but that gives you an idea of how we can take our very real challenges and play with how they show up for us.
Yeah.
And understand that there's going to be distortions of perception, that there are indeed multiple ways of looking at things. And we can be rather proactive about that. And we can even turn the most serious things into a game. I just did that, as you know, with my latest wonderful health journey was with the claudication of my legs, where my legs started to cramp up and I had to give up the kiteboarding and the skiing. As a matter of fact, walking my 2 puppies, my English cream golden retrievers, who are my everything. I couldn't walk more than a minute before my legs would completely cramp up and they would feel like 1,000,000 pounds and they would go numb. Turns out I had 100% blockage in both femoral arteries. It's a hereditary thing.
Wow.
And so then they put a stent in from my groin down to midway down my left leg, and then from my groin all the way past my knee to the pepitele. And so then I was good until 3 months later, I got a blood clot. And that's how my grandpa died. And so that was really, really, really scary. And then 3 months later, I got another blood clot. Now I'm thinking, at the time I was 57 years old, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm just getting started. My life is over. It's like I started getting symptoms up my chest, cardiac symptoms, right? And down the left arm. And at night, I swear, I was just in tears. I would kiss my dogs goodbye every night because I really did not know if I was going to wake up the next day, right? But then I saw this movie one night on Netflix. It's called The Game Changers. And these elite athletes, world's strongest man, these NFL football players, this Olympic athlete who's the oldest to ever get 4 Olympic gold medals at 39. They all went plant-based. And their strength, their endurance. Yeah, whole food, plant-based. I don't call it vegan. I don't call it vegetarian. I don't like those labels. It's just they start eating number of plant-based foods, including rice, potatoes, beans, pastas. There's all sorts of fun stuff out there. It's not just eating salads and veggies. No, I could never do it otherwise. But I was so inspired that by the end of the movie, I had cleared out all my cupboards. I had this newfound hope and conviction.
By the end of the movie?
That's it. Everything's been cleared since, too. And so that got me off to a wonderful start. And then I kicked into next gear. I ended up doing 70 days. Remember, I did 70 days on nothing but living food, juice, smoothies, green smoothies with a little bit of fruit and that type of thing.
So how is this related to your blood clot, your arteries, all of that stuff, your circulatory system?
It reversed my the symptoms that were coming up my body.
Yeah,
disappeared. I reversed my diabetes. You know, the A1C, the 3-month average of your blood, right? It was at a 7.4. Now it's a 5.1. Solid, right in where I want to be. My cholesterol went down 83 points. My inflamed joints got resolved. More energy than I could ever imagine. And my cognitive issues even improved. So it was a huge game changer for me. And I've been having fun with it all ever since. But key thing that I just have to mention about this, for the first time in my life, as a former addict who had tried to quit smoking cigarettes probably 30, 40 times through hypnosis. And
you as a smoker.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And not to mention smoking pot 10 times a day. And then it got to smoking crack cocaine, which is the most evil freaking thing in the world. Oh my God, really? And so this time, I didn't plan on it, but this time I played a different game. So, you know that thing that I mentioned earlier, life wants one thing, more life. It wants to move, grow, and expand and express itself through us, yeah? Well, as far as I can tell, my perspective on what human beings have given us as a model for creating change, which is not fun, it's not easy, and not very successful most of the time, it's to deprive oneself, like dieting. It's, and as soon as I can't have the cake and ice cream and donuts and everything. What do I want more of? The cake, cookies, ice cream, and donuts, right?
Right.
Not because we're weak. Here's my little theory, and I'm sticking to it, is we're breaking the commandment, the physics of life. Life wants to be filled up, and here I am. The perception of deprivation is going to kick into the brain and say, don't take life away from me. It's a threat. You see? So this time, I freed myself of smoking, alcohol, pot, all animal foods, caffeine, oil, sugar, and salt. Effortlessly. Really? Yeah. And
How did you make it effortlessly?
I made it about filling myself up, not taking things away, needing discipline and willpower and rules and the battle. I'm going to fight the. No. I went along with what life wants. It wants to be filled up. It wants more. So the perception is filling myself up. New foods, new experiences, new people, new communities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And everything by choice. There's no have-tos, shoulds, or musts. I have no rules. And I say this to everybody. That I could have a big fat steak, a cigar, and a shot of vodka if I wanted to right now.
Yeah.
But right now, just for this moment, I choose to have blah, 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 blah instead. That's the difference.
Yeah, you told me about this Game Changers movie, and I watched it, and I went plant-based overnight.
Isn't that a great movie? It's so much fun.
It's very entertaining, and it's funny in some ways, but it's got a lot of real science in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never a heavy meat eater. I haven't eaten beef for years, mostly chicken, et cetera, et cetera. But I found myself slipping back into meat eating. But then, I think I kind of got this from you. You said there is no rules. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's no big. When people slide on a diet, they have a new eating plan, and they slide. They make one mistake, and then they say, "Oh well, it's all over," and then they eat 2 roast chickens the next day or whatever. So I didn't make myself wrong, but at a certain point, I was feeling some aches and pains, and my energy wasn't good. Something was going on, and for several days I didn't eat dinner. I said, I just need to sort of step back here. And I said, yeah, I really don't want to keep eating meat anymore. I just don't. And so I just, without effortless, not trying to reach a goal, not trying to lose weight, just, I just want to eat plant-based stuff. And I'm, every once in a while I'll have shrimp momos, pot stickers. They don't have a lot of shrimp in them. Anyway. So it's like sometimes we get so strict about something that we become fanatical about it.
That's right.
So I just went back to my body and said, what do I feel better when I'm eating a certain kind of food, and meat just doesn't turn me on anymore. I eat a little bit of cheese, but it's an interesting way to approach it.
Yeah,
Not
and
not
you said
not
it.
with guilt or not with,
That's
I've got to do this in order to lose this many pounds and then I'll be okay. I don't. It's more like in the moment. How am I
I love
feeling?
hearing it.
Yeah.
That's the key, really. And my dad, I'll never forget when he told me this. He was a cardiologist for 54 years. He was literally my favorite person on planet Earth, the sweetest man you'll ever meet. And I recently had to say goodbye to him. But he told me, he says, Carl, it's really strange. Even when somebody's had a heart attack and their life depends on creating a new lifestyle and sticking with it, he would say about 95% of the people would not be able to do it. Now, again, I'm very, very clear on this. Are we weak people or this? No, we're amazing people. We'll put massive amount of effort and discipline into something. It's just we are going in the opposite direction of what life wants. If I'm taking stuff away and the perception is such and the focus is, if I'm tuned into the deprivation channel, it's not going to work very well.
Yeah.
So it really gives insight into why change can be so difficult. And if we apply this to not just the food and the other things that we put in our body, but having fun filling ourselves up with what we desire, it changes the game. It really does. Not always easy to do, right? But it's infinitely easier than the traditional model of forced deprivation and discipline and all that.
Right. So you've done some work with people. You've done some counseling with people. You've done some interesting things. A few years ago, you said, I'm looking at people to coach, and I want to coach some young people. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I call it Young Minds, Untapped Genius for Young Minds. I'm not using that term Untapped Genius anymore. It's the name of my business, but I realized that even though I have a deep conviction that we all have genius built in, not everybody can relate to that. So, but at the time, called Untapped Genius Mastermind for Young Minds, and I worked with teens and young adults. I love working with them, not only because they're our future, but once they realized that Carl was not here as their parent trying to get them to do their homework or behave or anything, it's like, no, dude, what are you into? Right? And then I'd show my drums or my kiteboard and stuff. They just figure it out within a couple of minutes. Like, I'm a kid at heart,
Right.
Then you give them a huge amount of space to just be themselves. And when they do, what naturally emerges, even if they don't have a clue, like, oh, what do I want to do with my life? And, I got to go to college. I got to major in something. I don't know what to do. That question, that journey of discovery becomes effortless once they're given the space without pressure, without needing to figure everything out. It comes to them naturally. It's like what you were naturally drawn to as a kid. Well, what do you love doing right now when you don't have a concern in the world? And we start with that. And then we bring some form and function to what they would like to create for themselves. So it's not just all fluffy talk and dreaming and aspirations. It's, all right, now let's create a little bit of a map. I don't get too rigid with it, right? And there's room for growth. This one kid here in Buffalo, he's 25 years old, but emotionally he was probably, 12 or 13 years old at most. He had some cognitive issues, actually, that have him stuck in his development. And so he came to me not knowing anything what he wanted and whatnot. Long story short, we just started getting him into a variety of things. Like I taught him how to drum, right? He started getting into that. Then we taught him how to juggle. And then this one day I get a phone call. It's like, Carl, you never guess where I'm at. And he's at this place called Canal Side here in Buffalo, New York. And he's got his hat out and he's juggling in front of people. And somebody gave him a $10 tip and he was totally beside himself and whatnot. It's that kind of thing. When you see people, young and old, lighting up at the discovery of what they're actually capable of doing, that's, for me, the juice of all of this, because that's what I've wanted my whole life. And I've had so much stuff getting in the way that if I could be a bit of a catalyst and help clear the way so that they can be amazing, I mean, come on. Is there anything better? Yeah. So that's it.
So what are you working on next?
So with my latest health journey, I took a year off of work after being burnt out. I was putting in 12, 14 hours, 7 days a week for years. No vacations, no breaks, no weekends, nothing.
Wow.
And so cardiac issue and plus just mental burnout. I couldn't have a meeting more than 10 minutes. It got really, really bad. So I've taken a break, but I am feeling much better. Newfound energy, newfound clarity, and the latest iteration of my life's work is called You to the Fullest. It's a simple idea that we've been talking about today, that there's this intrinsic drive and interest in being fully expressed. So here at the Wave Cave, my apartment, I just recently put in a whole ton of money into a makeover. And so I'm going to have these local gatherings, and it's going to be streamed throughout the world as well, where we're going to have a simple conversation with good food. I'm Italian, love is food, food is love. We're going to have good food, good company, good conversation about the simple idea of what could you to the fullest mean for you? What would that look like? Then we'll take them maybe through a little exercise to give them a little taste, what it's like, pretending as if it's already here. Because when you can give oneself permission to act as if it's already here, I find that simplicity and clarity and excitement emerge, right? Then part 2 of the conversation is a different game at play to this thing called change or creating what you want. As I've already mentioned, about filling up, moving towards that fulfillment and whatnot, right? And then at the very end, I'm going to be playing drums. I'm going to have other people express themselves, because in the end, it's 4 things: mind and body, connection with others, life, right? And then expression. So people are going to have an opportunity to express themselves. And so there you go. You to the fullest.
When is this starting?
It's going to be 3rd week in May. So it's coming right up. And I've got this is a brand new idea. And I think I've got like 1 page for my website. I just got a new domain, youtothefullest.com. And if they want, they can put their name and email in and keep them posted, because this is going to be a worldwide thing, and eventually it's going to be at retreats, like in tropical islands. Oh yeah,
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting in interviewing all these people. I'm seeing a lot of synchronicity in terms of the ordinary visionaries. It's not too far from you at the fullest. It's like, what is your vision? What's important to you? What's your next step? What is and the spin that I put on it is what you're doing something that will make a difference, which you can look at in a number of different ways. And I don't think that opposes what you're talking about at all. And then my friend Jill Conrath started a website and a newsletter called What's Really Possible.
Mm-hmm.
So this, we're living in a crazy world these days, and it seems to be getting crazier and crazier. The president is being indicted. We have a war in Gaza. We have a war in Ukraine where the Republicans said, well, we can't help Ukraine anymore. We like Putin better. I mean, insane stuff like that,
Lots and lots and lots of it.
And, a lot of gun violence, et cetera, et cetera. And I sort of feel we're at a point similar to the 60s where we were protesting Vietnam, and there was an expanding awareness of different possibilities opening up, and a lot of things in society changed. I was just a teenager then, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I think when we go through these difficult times, it's an opportunity to say, okay, screw that shit. We want something. We want something different. We want something more expansive. We want to be connected with people. I was talking to somebody yesterday who said there's a big shift in change when the pandemic happened, and people started to not, they started to work virtually, and they realized, oh, I was working in a toxic work environment. I like working by myself, and I don't know. There's a lot of stuff happening that way. That's very, we might see it as a bad thing, but I see it's, these kind of cycles happen in civilization. And, the rise of AI, which is fascinating and terrifying at the same time. So, your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
thoughts on, zeitgeist, or really, dramatic changes are happening?
I just love paradox. I love the fact that in the midst of my personal challenges, as well as global challenges, I can do what nature does and transform it. Always. With anything. Is it always easy? God, no. But to know that that is built into every crisis is an opportunity for real. It's not just a concept or a thought, but, really being proactive about transforming. And for me, what can I do with this? What's the opportunity? What do I actually like about it? I mean, I love that question. What do I actually like about it?
What do I like about this sucky situation? I think that's really...
Now, you can't ask that question unless you make it a game.
Yeah.
Because that's a crazy question to ask a lot of times, right? So how can I give myself permission to actually ask that question so that I can start working with the challenges instead of this? Again, we were given the model of find the enemy, find the problem, and destroy it. I'm sorry, I'm not impressed with that approach. For myself personally, when I look out globally, no. It's the difference between, there's martial arts. Most of them are this, karate, keto, but Aikido is different. If somebody punches it, you don't block, you work with the energy and you redirect it. That's the difference.
Yeah. And Tai Chi is also even softer that way. It's it's flowing with the, with the energy of life. So have you done martial arts? Have you practiced it? I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you've done everything.
I would love to get into capoeira, which is a Brazilian martial arts to music.
Oh, yeah.
And, in my last music school, I studied world percussion from all over the world. Congas, djembe, you name it. Doombacks. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah.
And so they use an instrument that looks like a bow and arrow called a berimbau.
Yeah.
And it's more of like a dance, and it's a game. Capoeira. Yeah, I'd be interested in trying that out. But,
spell that. C-A-P.
Capoeira. U-I-E-R-A? Or is it just U-E-R-A? C-A-P-U-E-R-A. I don't know. Look it up.
I've seen it performed on the streets. You have a dozen young people, and they're sort of dancing and moving, and then they're kicking their legs, and it's sort of like a dance, martial arts, but no one's fighting each other.
That's right.
But
I think we've got enough fighting going on.
It's beautiful. Yeah. We've got enough fighting going on. Oh, God. Yeah, it's for me, it's gotten to this place where, I follow the news. I like to know what's going on. I follow politics. But I've had a real hard time with this Israeli-Gaza conflict. It just seems more horrific than I can even face,
I have to limit myself personally because of my health journey. I have no luxury of getting too stressed out. My life depends upon it. So I have literally changed the channel with that stuff. I used to watch politics. Oh my gosh, 6, 7, 8 hours at times. Now I'll be just aware of generally what's going on. For me, what can I do about all this stuff? One person at a time, and hopefully, one to many, with groups of people. Turn folks onto the nature of the mind, the distortions of perception, hold on a little bit more loosely to what we think is absolutely certain about that other person or about life. And so we can maybe, just maybe, begin to transform some of these things into something new. That's what I'm here to do. And that's all I can do. So, yeah, fascinating time to be alive, for sure. I could not imagine a more amazing time to be alive with all the challenges and opportunities, including artificial intelligence, which, yes, I know, it can destroy the world. Yes. However, and this is going to be strange.
No, we don't know.
Here's the strange thing. I don't know how this is going to sound, but all right. So when you think about the internet, what the internet did was it created basically one mind, right? And each node, each website or whatever is like a synapse of the brain, right? And so now in 3D, we have time, space, distance, and all that kind of normal stuff. But in the quantum field, and quantum mechanics, in the fifth dimension, which as an electrical engineering student, we would calculate phase angles of waves and stuff using mathematics from the fifth dimension. Okay, so it's real, even though it's really weird, wacky stuff.
Beyond
in the fifth dimension. What's that?
Beyond my little mind to understand that stuff.
Real simply, there's no time, there's distance. It's waves of probabilities that eventually happen when they collapse into 3D. So there's all sorts of possibilities in 5D. But the important point here is that there's no time or distance. So you have access to everything all at once on some level. And so what the internet and artificial intelligence to me is doing, it's a very spiritual kind of thing to me because it's extending beyond our limits as human beings. And if you think about it, with artificial intelligence, with the internet, we are transcending the limits of time, space, distance, and other barriers. So I'm going with that. As a matter of fact, I've been putting in my life's work into ChatGPT and getting all sorts of, verifications. It thinks it's really interesting. And it's kind of like an extension of myself. It's almost like this benign super version of me that's helping bring form and function and clarity to my work. So I'm all in. Yeah.
Well, Carl, it's really been fun talking to you today, as usual.
It's always a fun ride.
We've always had fun conversations, and I'm always amazed at what you're into and what you're exploring and what you're doing, and the ways you're killing your body and then bringing it back again.
No, we're killing.
Take it easy. Don't overdo it. Don't hurt yourself, okay? We want you around for a few more years.
I'm just getting started, so there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, one last little point. If you look at my name thing, it says Carmelo.
Yeah.
So I've been going through a transformation. I want to make this public just so I can feel more comfortable with this. So I thought it was Carl, but my grandfather came over from Italy when he was 9 years old by himself, not speaking a word of English. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Right through Ellis Island. He was named Carmelo. My dad's name was Carmelo. He changed it to Carl so he didn't sound too ethnic.
Yeah.
Right, so he didn't get beat up here in Buffalo. And so they named me Carl III. But when I found out that, no, it's actually Carmelo, it's like, no. My name, you ready, is Carmelo Antonio Contino III. Thank you very much. And I'll tell you, even the women seem to really like this name more than Carl. So I say that because for me, it represents a fuller version of me that I, for most of my life, have been held back with doubts and fears, my cognitive issues, physical constraints, you name it.
Yeah.
So much getting in the way. And so right now, this health transformation that I'm in the middle of, or actually towards the tail end, to me, it's the chrysalis, where it creates this chrysalis that I get to break through. And every birth has some kind of obstacle or impediment to break through, right?
Right.
And so the smaller version of me is Carl, but the fully expressed version
is Carmelo.
And that's what I want for everybody, to be their fully expressed selves, because, man, I'm telling you, I mean, you can see the energy going through me It's fun stuff, and it just
Carl, why don't you legally change your name? I love that. Carmelo.
I'm giving some thought and consideration to
Yeah.
that. Yeah, as I get more
I
comfortable.
lived in Italy for a while when my dad was in the Air
Did
Force.
you?
Yeah, we lived in Sardinia.
Oh, okay.
And so, in Italy, if you're Robert, you're Roberto.
Roberto, yes.
So often, friends call me Roberto.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I like that. I'm about as far away from that culture. I'm definitely a wasp, but but Roberto, it's something about the resonance of that. It brings out a creative part of you and a more fun part of you instead of Robert or Carl.
That's right. A fuller version of you just can't help but come out when you sing Roberto. And there you go. And that's truly what it's all about. And if I can be a bit of a catalyst for people to just give themselves permission in a way to be, more fully expressed, shine your light brighter, whatever. Yeah, baby. That's what I'm here to do.
So, Carl, the conversation continues. I can't wait till the next time we talk. It probably won't be on video, but we'll be exploring something. Thank you for taking the time today. I had a lot of fun.
Honor, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Carmelo.